Hello, listeners. This is your host, Tim Curley, with a prologue to this episode. Like all of you, the holidays were quite busy for all of us. The new year has been quite busy for Colton and I. So we have a lot of episodes that we've recorded. We just haven't gotten them edited. I'm sure you saw that we took a 2-week hiatus from posting, and that's just because life got away and couldn't fit in getting an episode posted. So we're a bit behind. That includes 1 or 2 episodes lost, quote unquote, from November and December that will get up some point probably in February. But right now we're going to post the New Year's, our second of the New Year's resolutions episode that we did. It's going to be unedited, raw, and so enjoy, warts and all.
Whoever drinks beer, he is quick to sleep. Whoever sleeps long does not sin. Whoever does not sin enters heaven. Thus, let us drink beer.
Three, two, one. Welcome back to this special episode of the Go to Hell podcast. Strong opinions weekly held about Christianity, the church, and beer. I'm your host, Tim Curley, and I'm joined by my soon-to-be inebriated friend, Colton. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm going to be actually extremely impressed if I can get through this without inebriation, but I like to be hopeful. I'm doing good. I was like, Christmas went through this week without a hitch, no problems. Got to have our baby's first Christmas. It was significantly more. I told this to my wife where I said that this year felt,
Holy moly.
as far as Christmas goes, so much. I don't know. There's something about this year where I just. It's not that I wasn't feeling it or whatever. It just didn't seem as special. I don't know why or whatever, but it's just how it was. So I don't know. And like my kid's there and all that kind of stuff. But I mean, like she doesn't know what she's opening. Like people are like, oh, don't you just love it when they're opening gifts? And I was like, my daughter doesn't even look at the gifts when it's being opened. She's so. But it all went well. So, like I said, it's just been kind of a meh Christmas, I guess. But it was great on all accounts, just as far as anticipated. It was good. So no complaints about it. I feel like I just wasn't anticipating it as much as usual. So.
Yeah, mine got blown up by the flu. Ooh. Influenza A was going around, and so we got over it just in time for Christmas, so we were still able to have everybody over, but we missed going to church on Christmas Eve or Christmas Eve, and that always kind of puts a damper on Christmas for me. I don't know why. For someone who hosts a show about the church imploding, it's still like going to church around Christmas is still kind of an important thing. So since we didn't get to go because we were worried about still being a bit contagious, we stayed away. I kind of put a damper on the true meaning of Christmas, but otherwise it was still pretty nice.
Yeah, that's good. Service was good, by the way. I was there for my twice-a-year appearance.
Your twice-a-year appearance.
Easter and New Year's. Yeah, or not New Year's.
Now you're just a Catholic.
Yep. Yep, 100%. What are we drinking tonight, Tim? We're drinking cocktails.
We are drinking cocktails. We are drinking Thank You Very Much from Dust Bowl. It is a mega IPA. It's they made up a term. It's so high. It's in 14.3% alcohol in a 16-ounce can. So somewhere around probably question 29, I think we'll both be either slurring our words or saying really stupid things. It's the perfect beer for coming up on this will be our second New Year's episode.
That's right.
But this is a very New Year's. Oh, man, and I've already had a couple of beers, so
It's a good way to toast to the new year. But they didn't have cilantro, so you're good. What'd you drink? Like chocolate cow or?
I had Square Top, which was 4.7%, so it was fine. I only had 2 of them.
Oh, okay, perfect. I haven't had anything.
What? You didn't make it to 1852 today? I figured you would have.
No, I didn't. My Audrey was out running errands and that kind of stuff, and the hard part about 1852 is they don't open till 4. So I don't know. I had to make dinner, and then I was like, I needed to be over here, so it was roughly around 6 o'clock. I made dinner for Audrey because she was having her gluten-free meal this evening, which was eggs, bacon, and potatoes. So
Oh, darn.
terrible, I know.
So, music? I haven't really been listening to music this week.
I have not been listening to music as well. I have been listening to music. The music that I've been listening to, actually, I do recommend this for anybody that is ever like, you like to listen to music, but maybe you find yourself distracted by what you're listening to. Maybe it's too poppy or whatever, and you start singing along and that kind of stuff. When I was in college, and when I would work on stuff, and even in my classroom when I'm doing grading and all that kind of stuff during my prep periods, I toss on this playlist. You can find it on YouTube, you can find it on Hulu, on whatever. And I've been listening to it a lot just because it actually is helpful for making my baby sleep. So she likes to listen to it and she sleeps to it. So it's just a lo-fi. If you guys are unfamiliar with lo-fi music, it's very soft, and it's just a little lo-fi hip-hop with for beats to relax and study to. And so it's kind of like Audrey kind of says it's like smooth jazz with like some bass behind it.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, that's kind of fairly similar to what it is. Sometimes some of the songs have like rain sounds in it or whatever. Like I think that the music is perfect that you could even like sit there and read a book while you're listening to it. So you know, I can't exactly always read a book while blasting AC/DC in my house. So it's just how it goes. So that's what I've been listening to this week. So anything from you?
No.
Nothing.
No music this week. I actually listened to no music, so, and I haven't really listened. Yeah,
So
I've
you
just
listen
been
to the sound of silence. Is what you're
a lot of Larry David.
saying. Yeah.
Been watching a lot of Curb Your Enthusiasm for some reason. So,
Well, do we have any What the X?
What the X?
we do. I've got a couple. I'll save some of these for the next episode. I got plenty of stuff here, but I'll read a couple of these. Item 1. More people have left the church in the last 25 years than all the new people who became Christians from the First Great Awakening, Second Great Awakening, and Billy Graham crusades combined. Interesting. Item 2. All right, Christian nationalists, you want America to be Christian? Fine. The first thing to be done is to abolish the Defense Department, dismantle the nuclear arsenal, and reallocate the military budget for relief of the poor. This would be something like a Christian nation. All right?
I'm a pretty big advocate for that, but I don't say it. I don't think that it. I mean, I brought it up this week. Somebody was talking to me about budgets and where we should be spending money, and they were complaining about something or another, and I was like, well, there is that really big military budget over there.
Yep.
But we shouldn't get involved in wars, but yet let's continue to.
Let's continue to get involved in the.
Let's continue to get involved in the big dick competition.
Yes.
Biggest dick competition.
All right. Evangelicalism would rather you be a bad person with the right beliefs than a good person with the wrong beliefs.
No, but okay. I see what they're saying there.
Okay, and then the last one. This last one's just an interesting bit of history in the church. In 897 AD, Pope Formosus was put on trial for perjury and other crimes. The strange part is that he'd already been dead for a year before being put on trial. He was dug up and taken to court to stand trial. At the end of the trial, Formosus was pronounced guilty and his papacy retroactively declared null. And there's a picture from the Renaissance era of a dead corpse. Well, obviously, a corpse sitting in a throne as he's being put on trial.
I like the redundancy.
And then someone added, actually, he was exhumed and thrown into the same river twice by two different popes, and both times his corpse was recovered by people. He was then buried the third and final time. So, wonderful times in the history of the church.
Wow, that's fun. Nice little bit of history for us.
Okay. Boy, we're just blitzing through. We're how many minutes in?
Well, we're trying to avoid having to make this a 7-part episode series. So
We're 10 minutes in. Normally we'd be like still doing our intros. We're also trying to get this in before we're drunk and you got to drive home.
yes,
You can't sleep on my couch anymore.
I know. I've only done it the one time.
I know.
All right, so we're continuing on with our segment from last week where we were asking some questions about 2023, some reflection on that, and seeing where we go from there into 2024. So tonight we're going to be continuing on with our reflective questions. We'll see if we're able to get to some of our questions that are looking ahead to the next year. But still, I want to focus on some of those lessons that we've learned over the course of this year. Some of the cool things that we got to experience. But first off, what we need to know is, how did you fail this year, Tim?
How did I fail?
Did we go over that one or no?
No, I don't remember that one. That's different than making mistakes. So how did you fail? I can't think of any failures. Yeah, I can't think of any failures, which is an indication that you're not really trying too hard, which is true. I'm in a kind of like professionally, I'm kind of in a holding pattern. I'm not in a position where I can take risks because of what's going on with my business. So that's something I'm hoping I can do in probably 2025, is take risks and fail. So I can't think of anything, but that's not, I wouldn't say that's a positive. You're not failing, you're not trying. So
Yeah, I don't know. I think that failing also, like, we fail in a lot of ways, however minor, you know. And so when you reflect on them, just know that we're always constantly learning, so there's potential for us to have failed on regular occasions, and that we are trying to improve from those. And so those aren't always easy to admit, your failures. I think that there were some failures that I had as a coach this year. I think there's sometimes some failures that I have as a teacher. I was like, some of those specifics are, you know, like, just maybe I didn't, maybe one particular class or whatever, they were getting on my nerves, and so I just didn't give it everything that I had, and And there could be issues. I mean, some of the failures are, I failed kids this year. Those are my failures. Those are the ones. And that's always tough. I never like giving Fs to kids. I understand what those mean as somebody who received several Fs in their life. I know how hard it is to come back from that, what that does to you psychologically, and how, it seems sometimes like the easiest thing is to give up. So that's always difficult. And I mean, we have to acknowledge that about our own failures, and where, like I said, as a coach this year, there were things where it's like, for the team, maybe I could have done things differently. In my inexperience, I was not able to really guide them in the way that they needed to be led. But I hope that I'm able to learn from those and continue to grow and to develop as an educator and as a coach. So, yeah. You get on that one?
You're still... Yeah, see, I've been doing what I've been doing since the early 90s. So I've got, in terms of that, I've gotten the failures mostly out of my system. You're still learning your craft, both coaching and teaching. So, and again, I'm in a position right now where I'm kind of in a holding pattern professionally. So there's things that, other than the photo business, the day-to-day photo business stuff, that I would like to be doing that I can't right now, but hopefully that'll get resolved soon. So, anyway. I mean, there's certainly stuff day to day. I miss deadlines here and there on stuff I've got to do. But that again, that's not, I don't take that as failures as much as just mistakes being made. Anyway.
Number 16.
Ooh. This beer.
What got in the way of your success this year?
There's a big thing that's in my way, and I can't talk about it. So, yeah.
That big thing is the thing that got in the way of the success this year.
Well, I can't talk about it.
I know. Things that got in the way of my success this year. I think that my inexperience as a coach, as far as our water polo program, that got in the way of our success. I think the lack of humility from my players led to some of the issues that we had with our success. It's just how it goes. Success in my career, in my job, I feel like I, at least towards the later half of the year, which was, again, I'm constantly learning, I felt like I was, there was nothing, it felt like things were released as far as a lot of things that were keeping me from success when I left my previous job to go to this one. So I've been able to flourish and be successful there. I was like, as far as my marriage and my home life, I don't think anything got in the way of success there. I think I'm always learning still on how to be a good husband, and I'm definitely learning on how to be a good father, but nothing so far has held me back in those areas as far as I know. Like, my wife could beg to differ, but she's not here on the podcast tonight, so. Yeah, so that's all I got. You want to unpack on?
No, I can't.
Number 17. What would you do differently if you could?
What would I do different? Jeez Louise. I wouldn't do anything any different. Yeah. I mean, I already said I didn't really have any big failures because I'm kind of in a holding pattern. So if you haven't had any big failures, there's no reason to do anything different.
Yeah, I think I don't always like this question. I think it's very similar with, what regrets might you have in life? I think it's okay to sit there and dwell on things where you're like, I could have done this better, or I could have done this a different way. But that's part of the learning process. That's what helps us grow and to develop. And so we have to make mistakes in order enough to know those lessons a lot of the times. And so I oftentimes would sit there and say, I wouldn't have done anything differently because I believe that it's helped form and shape me into who I am and who I need to be moving forward.
Yeah, I agree with that.
But at the same time, one thing that I still say is I do regret when I hurt people. And oftentimes I don't think we know when we've hurt people. And so if I could ever take anything back, and if I hurt someone based off of something that I did, and mainly usually intentionally, if I did something intentionally and it hurt someone in the process, and I didn't see that until retrospectively, where I was like, oh, that wasn't worth it. I was like, if I had known that would have caused trouble to someone else, I wouldn't have done it. That's always what I say. I think things are always kind of messy and all that kind of stuff. And yes, I know that you could learn those lessons, and like I said, but when it comes to causing other people pain, I'd prefer not to learn that lesson the hard way, because sometimes relationships are shattered, and though you can take that lesson into the next one, sometimes it's not necessarily. If I could choose, I would like to preserve as many relationships as I could.
Yeah.
So, I don't know if I had any of those this year, but like I said, oftentimes you don't know that it's happened until years later when they come up and they say that, hey, you said this and it was kind of hurtful. And I'd be like, what? That's not what I meant at all. And I wish I could explain it. Maybe I didn't say it the correct way before or whatever. And so that's something that I would take back if I could.
So I did have a really bad brain fart moment this year. Went to a party at somebody's house, and apparently, I'm not saying apparently like I'm questioning that it happened or didn't happen, but apparently I showed up at this party and didn't acknowledge the
Host.
The female host, and was told about it a couple days after the fact, and just was like, couldn't believe I'd done it. And so yeah, I was just like, yeah, that was can't believe it did that. Like showed up at your house and didn't acknowledge your wife. Yeah, that's pretty boneheaded. And then within the last 2 weeks, within the last week, I'm watching Curb Your Enthusiasm, and Larry David apparently did the same thing. Showed up at somebody's house and didn't acknowledge the hostess of the party, and got himself into trouble. And I'm watching, I'm like, see, that's exactly why it happened. I blame Larry David.
Yeah,
too much Curb Your Enthusiasm.
that's all it takes.
But yeah, in fact, I don't even think I've had a chance to see this person since it happened. And
They don't want to see you.
apparently, because I haven't seen him since, and it was like late summer, early fall. So I haven't had a chance to do a mea culpa. I mean, I guess I'd just go over to their house and do a mea culpa, but
You're dead to them.
apparently, and it was earned.
Man, this is a cocktail. All right. Number 18, how are you different than a year ago?
How am I different? I don't know. At my age, I don't know, that different. I don't think people change that much.
Well, you want me to?
You go ahead. I mean,
Uh,
you've had a baby, so you've.
Nah, well, that's not even what I was gonna say. I was like, I still feel like there's a lot of things that are at my core are the same, but I think this year forced us to have to iron a couple of things out. Just things that happened in the world where we had to sit there and we fleshed out, the Israel situation. Where before we could sit there and we could talk and all that kind of stuff, but really, I think that some of these conversations that we've had this year have made it to where I'm like, now it's not necessarily picking a side, but so much as you have to sit there and say what it is that you believe in with some of these things. Where we've talked about what we've believed is, we believe that there's a lot more of this gray area around the Middle East than maybe what American propaganda has said for the past 100 years. Where we still support the lives of all of those around the world, not just because we believe that God loves every single person. I don't know. I think I've grown from that experience, and the lessons that I've taken from that have been good. There's been a couple of other conversations that we've had this year on the relationship with Jesus Christ. I think that's always growing and it's always developing. I think I'm seeing things differently at different times. I know maybe for some of you guys, you're like, you guys are the same. But really, no, we're challenged and we think differently. I had talked about earlier this year where I said I don't have a very charismatic approach and I'm very skeptical and I don't really open myself up in a lot of those ways. And I'm still struggling with that, I'll be honest. But it's something that I'm more open to than I once was, which I think is okay. So I think I've grown really this year in those ways. Not only just, the typical, I had a kid, like I'm learning how to be a dad and all that kind of stuff. But yeah. Anything from you?
Well, yeah, I mean, I would say this year, since we've started the podcast, I think both of us, but me in particular, the Christian worldview and then just the political worldview. I don't think anybody who knew me when I was in my 20s or 30s would recognize me now if we just sat down hey, we haven't talked in a while, and just they probably just started talking about politics or something and just assuming that I was going to agree with him. I think I'd probably freak him out. Like, I don't even know who you are anymore. And I think that's accelerated this year. And I think you and I have changed. I think you and I were a little more like bitter when we started this podcast in terms of how we were portraying. Let's stick by it. I think we've gotten a little softer. I mean, we still disagree with a lot of what the church does, but I think you and I have both gotten a little more I don't know. But certainly on things like Middle East and war in general definitely changed quite a bit. So
yeah.
I think our faith should be. I think if you're really walking with Jesus, a lot of what you should feel uncomfortable in a lot of what you're thinking. I just put it that way. I think he should be challenging a lot of what you normally conventionally would think about the world, and just been, no, I can't view the world that way. Jesus doesn't allow me to do that. So
Yeah, I agree. Number 19, a little bit of a change of pace. What did you do for your physical and mental health this year?
not much for my physical health. I need to do that. Needs to be my thing in 2024. Mental health. I started reading a lot more than I had in the past, and I'm hoping to continue to do that even more. And part of that's with this podcast, but also just trying to get back into doing more deeper study in a lot of things. Not just I'm not even talking about the Bible, just kind of deeper study of the world, a little more intellectual. So
Yeah, mental health was a tough one this year for me.
mental health, I didn't have to do anything. I'm pretty even keeled when it comes to that. I don't. Sorry, but
But even then, like, you do things for your mental health.
no,
Like,
I don't.
well, like reading is for your mental health. And
Well,
stuff.
intellectual health, but not like depression or anything.
I think mental health goes beyond just depression and anxiety. I don't know. I I think that there's something to be said about. I don't know. I never used to be anybody. I was fairly laid back. I had an incident that took place at a movie theater in 2018. And all of a sudden I had a panic attack, brought on by I just was suffering from some indigestion was basically all it was, but it was something that I wasn't ready to feel. I was sleep deprived. I had 3 energy drinks that day, and I'm at a movie. I was up at 6 a.m. and I was working all day, and then showed up, and Alec convinced me to go to the movies at 11 o'clock at night. So
Oof.
So I'm sitting there. I'm completely spent. I end up having some gastral indigestion issues. I feel like I can't breathe. I freak out. The music's loud or whatever. It's like the very start of the movie, and I had to walk out. And I ended up leaving Alec at the movie theater. We drove together, and I was like, "You're gonna have to find a ride home." And I went home. I had a huge panic attack, and that proceeded to cause what would then be the next, up until now, the present situation of where I have anxiety where I never had it before. And like, you talk with people that have anxiety and they think weird stuff.
Right.
And no offense to the people that have anxiety, but I've met people like that my entire life where, they're stressing about this and they're stressing about that. My wife has some levels of it, and she talks to me about the things that she stresses about, and I'm like, I don't worry about that at all.
Right.
Mine kind of falls more in line with the hypochondriac side, which is actually, for some, they're like, that's also super weird. And it is weird. I don't acknowledge it as normal. And so I was doing fine for a bit. I was keeping it all at bay. And then a lot of the stuff happened with work and all that kind of stuff. And then in May, it really came to a head where I was like, I'm not doing good. And so I had to end up going back on my meds, and I don't foresee myself getting off of them again, just from the miserable place I was in for a couple of months where it's not a good place to be, where every day you just wake up and you're afraid of just everything that's going on in your body and that kind of stuff. So did that for my mental health this year. I went back on my medication. And though it's not something that I want to do, we've talked about, I have no problems with medication. I think that is absolutely a route that people want to do. And I don't have any religious issues with it, or I don't view that people view me differently because I'm on medication or anything like that.
Right.
That's not what it is. And for me, honestly, it's just, I don't want to take a pill every day. That's just it. Like, I was like, I don't want to take this for the rest of my life. Because that's just annoying. but it's something that I need to do. And we even had one of our friends who kind of made fun of me for a bit, who was like, what made you think that you were so good that you could just get off of it from the first time that I had it? Right. And I was like, well, like, I just didn't want it, like, you know? And he's like, no, people like need that. And like, you just have to accept the fact that you're one of those people that need it. And it's like, yeah, there's truths that we have to learn about ourselves. And that's one of those things where it's just like, from here on out, because of whatever happened, whatever flipped in my brain in 2018, I'm going to be one of those people that's going to need it. And it's going to be better for my marriage. It's going to be better for my children if I'm a little bit more even than like whatever happens, like what happens if I'm feeling good right now, but what happens if a year and a half down the road I end up in another deadlock time where I can't do anything socially. I can barely function for 2 straight months. That's really tough. To where I can't really shut down. And I mean, like, that's the world that we live in, where we say that that's not possible. And that's where I think that anytime that people say that they support those with mental health, I think that that's bullshit. I don't think that most of corporate America and the way that the American...
Sorry.
And the way that America works, I don't think that we support mental health. Like, I think we say it, we wear the ribbons or whatever, but I don't think we actually know what it means to support that, because I think a lot of people still think that it's bullshit. So, or that it's made up. Which is okay, because like I said, if I didn't have that experience in 2018 and feel what I felt for the next, what is it now, like 6-7 years, 6 years, I'd probably still think it was bullshit. Just like everybody else, or I'd be like, oh no, like, it exists, but like, just get over it, you know? So that's just kind of it. So mental health there, I still do a lot of things, right. Like I've had routines in place and that kind of stuff. So like Tim says, reading isn't necessarily a part of mental health. It's a part of intellectual health. For me, it's a part of both. I have to read 2 hours every night. So I go home, or like whenever I go, I completely unplug from electronics, or I try to by 9 p.m. There's a routine. And if you're listening to this podcast, we're hardly ever done by 9 p.m. But like, there's a routine that I have to set in place where I'm technology free for about an hour, for at least an hour to 2 hours, before I go to bed. So that way I'm able to completely shut my brain off, because I struggle with insomnia, in the early stages. And that was tough. When I go to sleep, if I wake up in the middle of the night, my wife is terrible at it, and I know a lot of people are. They check their phones. I won't look at my phone. Like,
yeah.
If I wake up in the middle of the night, I purposefully, I'm like, nope. Like, I have to be adamant, because when I was struggling with insomnia, it was like, okay, I'll go on my phone. I'm like, I'm not sleeping anyways. Like, I'll just do this and I'll just do that. Or I was like, I'll just go turn on the TV, or I'll go play a video game or whatever. And that was actually way worse for me.
Yeah.
So I don't do those types of things. So those are all good for my mental health. For my physical health this year, I don't know if I did anything really good for my physical health. I mean, I went outside in the sun. Yeah, I know. I probably need to take care of myself a little bit better physically. Got a couple of things in the works to do that, but yeah, I'm still 28, so I still think that nothing's going to happen to me physically. So I just continue to harbor that until one day I'll just randomly look in the mirror and I'll be like, oh man, I gained 30 pounds out of nowhere. So we'll see. But yeah, anything else to add?
No.
All right. Number 20, who or what had the biggest impact on your life this year?
Who or what? I would think, well, I would probably each of us would say the two of us have had a big
100%.
impact. Yeah.
That's all you got.
That's all I got.
I'd say the same thing. I think I mean my daughter, yes. I feel like that's like the easy answer for everything. But if my daughter was out of the equation, I'd sit there and say I think that the conversations that we've had this year and the relationship that we've developed this year has had the greatest impact on my life so far this year. So, well, by the end of this year. Number 21. What did you let go of?
Oof. Let go of. Let go of the Republican Party.
Wow.
What
It's a
did I
big
let
step
go
for you
of?
in rural California here.
I don't know. I can't think of anything I've let go of.
Friends,
No.
the hatred towards other people.
No, I still got some of that. That'll last for another year or so.
No bitterness that you've let go of.
No.
Bad habits, good habits.
Mm-mm. How about you?
Things that you let go of because your age has to forces you to let go
Oh, no.
of them. I say that actually because I had a conversation with someone the other day about kind of how my father is hitting those marks, where he's not able to run as far, he's not able to, whereas as he gets older, things are becoming a lot of last. This is the last time I'll be able to do this. It's the last time I'll be able to do that. Tony Hawk talked about it once, where he's like, "Yep, I am at that age now where it is now. There are certain tricks where it's like, on my skateboard where it's like this is, and they become occasions for him where he's like, this is my last time doing this. It's my last time doing this." And
No, I had to get rid of those when I was like 40. When I turned 40, there were things that I remember when I wasn't even 30. I think I was 28. Not 28. When I started my business, I was still playing along with one other of my friends from high school. We were still playing tackle football with other guys our age, and then also with kids that I had recently who had just graduated from high school that I had coached playing football.
Oof.
And we did one last turkey bowl, and it was physical, and it was with a group of kids who the year before had won a CAF championship. So I'm out there, and I'm holding my own and everything, but I remember telling myself, you've just started a company, you've got no you've got no medical insurance or very poor medical insurance. You can't afford to like blow a knee out after starting this business. You can't do this anymore. So the tackle football went out the window. It kept doing like pickup basketball for a couple more years, but yeah, I remember telling myself that, and then the game coming up later, I'm like, nope, I'm done, and kind of getting ribbed for it. I'm like, no, it's a very practical reason. I can't afford. I got to be a grown up now. I can't go out there and break a arm or blow a knee out. So
Yeah, I. That's funny. I have that same conversation with kids because my classroom is decorated like a skate shop, and so kids ask me all the time, Mr. Pierce, do you skate? I used to, is what I always say, and skate until you die is kind of a thing. But I remember the last time I broke my arm. I was like, I wasn't in high school. I wasn't in junior high. I wasn't in elementary school. I was like full on adult. And I'm like going to work and like I can't do anything. And I'm like, I can't do this. Like I can't just sit here and just like break my arm like a couple months down the line and just be like, okay, this is like, the new norm or whatever, and you just get through work as long as you keep breaking stuff or whatever. And I was like, no, I can't do this anymore. And so I hung up the skateboard after that happened, where I haven't been on it since. And a friend of ours got really into it a couple of years ago. He still likes it. I don't know if I've seen him skate in a while, though. He'll occasionally go out. But he was really into it, and I was like, oh, maybe I could go back in. And then I like had talked to somebody the next day, and they were like, "Yeah, I broke my arm last week, or I broke my arm like a couple months ago." And I was like, "Oh yeah, no, I'm not going through that." It's like I can't do it again. And it's not even about the pain of the arm or whatever. It's just like the annoyance of like going to work and all that kind of stuff. Like I can't go. Sure, my job as a teacher doesn't change if I have a broken arm and that kind of stuff, but it's just so inconvenient.
Yeah.
Like as a kid, you don't give two shits. Like you're just like, oh yeah, my arm's broken. Like
Right.
you're like, this test sucks, but this is my biggest concern,
Right.
Like, and what do I explain to my boss? My boss is like, how'd you break your arm? Well, I was doing something that probably only 14-year-olds should do. So yeah, whatever. So I understand where that comes from, but. You didn't let go of any dreams this year?
I might be done with cigars. You know what? I'm not kidding.
Oh wow!
This last bout of flu, and then before that I had a cold. I don't know that it's all that good for my lungs after having COVID. I'm a little concerned the number of times I had COVID, and a lot of the talk is about the effects from those who got the vaccine, particularly if it was the mRNA. But before the vaccines came out, they kept making it clear like this might like knock 10 years off your life if you catch COVID, and I think we've kind of blitzed past that, or just assumed it was old people. So. Yeah, I don't know. I've not had a cigar. Well, last one I had was the birthday party, and it might be a while.
That's okay.
So, unfortunately, I'm sitting on a nice humidor right behind me with probably about 60 cigars in it. So, I'll have to sell them off or something. I don't know. We'll see. I don't know.
I get that. I get those convictions. I don't know. I don't think I gave up being an astronaut this year. I just don't think it's going to happen for me. I don't know if I gave up anything. There's nothing. It's always hard, like dreams and stuff, or you give up some of those dreams when you're young. Like. I'm not gonna play for the Dodgers. Although with Shohei Ohtani,
Yeah, you're not Japanese.
Yeah. Well, I mean, him and Yamamoto, they're taking those different deals. So maybe the Dodgers might have a little bit of money for me. Who knows? Even though I haven't played baseball since T-ball. But you never know when they're gonna need me. Yeah, I still haven't given up on a lot of stuff. I'm trying to think if there were any relationships this year. There's none that I gave up.
No, we gave up on relationships a couple years ago.
Yeah, that's also something that I need to give up.
is, we talked about that bitterness and that hatred. And I called my mother when I was on my way back from a water polo game. I wasn't playing in, or my team wasn't playing in. I was going and I was rooting for my ex school site. And I saw my previous boss, and I had a panic episode on the way home, or later that night, and I called my mom the next day, and I was like, "Hey, should I go see a therapist?" Like, I was like, I guarantee it was 100% just seeing him, because I was on edge. Like, the second I saw him, And the hard part is, in our world, I mean, I always believe in. I believe it 100%. I think that when there are breakups for teenagers, they need to be ugly as hell.
Yeah.
I was like, I believe it with all of my being that teenagers need to have ugly breakups, because they get into this, well, we should still be friends, and then there's kind of like this weird kind of thing, but then somebody gets hurt because they're like, they want to have a relationship with somebody else, but they thought that there were feelings. So I always tell teenagers, well, I don't tell them. If they ask me about a relationship, I'm like, or a relationship ending, I'm like, your breakup needs to be ugly. Like, you need to get it all out there. You need to say, you were a dirtbag for this and this and this, and you need to also be able to take it where they say you were a dirtbag for this and this and this and this. And what's hard about our world when we get fired, or when we get let go from things, or when, we leave occupations, we're not supposed to. I was like, there's people that do, but we're not supposed to. We have to be cordial. We have to be professional. We have to think about, all that kind of stuff. And so really, at the end of the day, I got no answers about why I was let go. And so all that I have for this person is a bunch of unanswered questions. And I just feel like this person doesn't like me, or doesn't care for me, or has it out for me, or whatever. And so just being around that just makes, like, it's almost like a black cloud like enters the room, and so that's something that hopefully I'll be able to let go of within the next year or two. But I still say, like, and you said a couple years ago, it's still something that I cannot stand about another individual at the organization that we used to attend. Like, it's still something where I was adamant that I couldn't go to church services. I couldn't do any of that stuff. I was like, I can't do it. I'm just going to sit there and just be pissed off and angry, and there's a potential that I might have a panic attack when I'm there because of just how toxic it was for me. So it's just like, okay, I'm not doing this. And still, when I see him, like, I don't feel good. Like, and that's so hard, like, where somebody causes that kind of reaction in you. It's almost like a kid seeing their bully, like a kid seeing their childhood bully, like grown up, and they like feel like some of the whiplash from it. Like, that's how I feel from these two individuals. And so hopefully at some point I'll be able to let it go and find healing from it. It's just, it's not there at the moment. So it's something that I hope to let go of in the next year, but it's something that I'm still holding on to. Anything else?
No. I've let it go. We have the same problem with a problem with the same individual. My issue is I don't want to have yet another conversation about why the church breakup happened.
Yeah.
Because I just feel like the individual's being intentionally obtuse about it because he doesn't like what I have to say. And so we can continue to have a conversation. So, no, you're just not accepting what I keep telling you is the reason why. And it's not satisfying to you or whatever. So you want to keep having a conversation until we supposedly have this meeting of the minds. No, we're just never going to have a meeting of the minds. So,
what were the most useful resources you had this year?
Well, for me personally, podcasts are indispensable. I have a lot that I listen to, and some vary because my business is sports, to where it's just the daily sports stuff, so I know what's going on in the sports business. But then I have other ones that I listen to that are kind of like history. There's one about the JFK assassination that's like, so I have ones that are anything from daily topical to ones that go on for like. There's one that actually helped inform some of the stuff we talked about on this podcast when the Israeli Palestine thing broke out, and it's like 8 hours of deep history of the history of Palestine. The same guy's got like 8 hours on Jeffrey Epstein, which is really dark and very disturbing because it goes into other things kind of related to Epstein, but related to Epstein, but not Epstein specific. And it's very, very, very dark, disturbing content. But yeah, I think podcasts are really important because humans have mostly learned verbally. We don't really reading is a very small. We've only been reading really mass communication for about 150, 200 years. I mean, yes, the printing press was invented a long, long time ago before that, but like really, truly people reading on a mass communication level is about 200 years old. Before that, everything's pretty much verbal. So I did see this week, I saw somebody say, I wasn't sure that I agreed with it. It was an interesting thought. I don't think I agree with it. Basically saying that, how was it? Logic only comes from reading. You can't have logic from verbal communication. I don't think I agree with that, but it was enough of an interesting thought to make me think about it. And certainly the Enlightenment, which is kind of the epitome of logical thinking, came about because of the printing press and everything. But I think that's a correlation it's a false correlation. I don't think that's the case. But anyway, definitely podcasts. Yeah.
I think for me, my most useful resources that I had this year is all of my friends. They continue to be a wealth of knowledge in whatever it is that they're going through or whatever is happening to them, and or maybe it's something that they've been through and they're able to give insight into it. It's always something that I've valued, and also why, if you're listening to this, it's important to get involved in a small group is because, and when I say a small group, I'm not talking about like. I mean, don't get me wrong. If you got 4 friends that you're going through life together and you guys are in similar backgrounds and that kind of stuff, that's good. But I do believe in having that widespread of of having different age groups involved to where they can talk about and speak into different situations that they're going through, and even if like you're one of the younger ones in the group, like I have usually been most recently, where. Again, I still think that we have something of value to add to the conversation, even if it doesn't necessarily come from a place of wisdom, but it comes from a place of ambition and desire and growth, or a desire for growth, where maybe others of the wiser age groups or whatever may be able to reflect and feel that they can grow in those areas as well. So, so I always feel like you should be. That you contribute and that you are valued in whatever conversation that you're being a part of. But I cannot express enough how grateful I am for all of our friends that have been able to speak into my life this year. I think they've been phenomenal resources and lots of help. And the person that most comes to mind is Jay Adams out of Trivia Night. So
Yeah.
Which I hope that they bring Trivia Night back.
Yeah, that was disappointing.
That's what I had to let go of this year.
That's true.
The fact that Trivia Night may not come back again.
We still have one more night though. Do we need a blowout at Planing Mill? Because I forgot the gift cards the last time we went.
Number 23. What are you thankful for this year? Tank. You're thankful for Tank.
No.
Yeah.
Huh, Tank. I'm thankful for my family. Family stuck together, and my daughter's found another. Looks like she's found another guy in her life, and I'm thankful for my granddaughters and how they're doing. So definitely family. Mom's doing well.
It's good. Anything else?
Nah, I mean, there's a lot, there's a lot to be thankful for, but well, that specifically. I mean, I could go on and on about what to be thankful for.
Yeah, I know. I think it's always good to be reflective on what we're thankful for, take stock of what we have gratitude in. And yeah, I'm thankful. I don't know. There's a TED Talk out there, and there used to be a podcast that, and I don't know if it's still going, but it basically was a podcast where a guy would take about 3 TED Talks, and it was an hour-long podcast, and he would then, and I think it was supported through NPR, where he would then find some of these TED Talks and then get more information about it than just the 20 minutes that they had on stage. There's one particular segment that was called happiness and how do we find it. And actually what they ended up doing was they gave this Benedictine monk, they played his entire TED Talk. They don't do that with everybody else. They just kind of show snippets. But this guy, they let him do his entire thing on the podcast because I think that they felt like it was that good. And I highly value this monk's interpretation of what happiness is, and really comes down to just being grateful for every given moment that we have, and that we recognize that everything that we have is a gift. And if we continue to sit there and believe that everything that we have is a gift and it's not earned by us and that it's given to us, I think that there's a phenomenal peace and just a tranquility that comes over us through that process of recognizing that. And that's why I think it's huge that we recognize that from Jesus Christ, is that nothing that we have is ours, or that we've earned. It's all been given to us, and so we recognize this as a gift. And so therefore, always I am grateful for every moment that I've gotten to have over this year, because I've enjoyed every moment of it.
Yeah.
Even the crummy ones. I'm so grateful to be alive and kicking and being able to contribute and grow and be who I am.
Especially after the San Diego Beer Marathon.
Yes. Especially after Saturday's hangover at the San Diego Beer Marathon. Just find out how it goes. That's what everybody's waiting for now. They're like, all right, we're going to tune in July or August when they go over their next San Diego Beer Marathon tour. 24. What did you leave unfinished?
Oh, boy. Well, there's a big thing in my life that's unfinished, but that's the thing I can't talk about. With the nemesis I can't talk about. So that is hopefully to be finished in 2024. Thank God. And then I can move on with my life. So that's a big thing.
Anything else?
No.
I've got 4 books that are currently unfinished. I'm reading through books right now. That's usually the thing that I'm a completionist. I know that there's people that are like, I DNF something or whatever. I did not finish, and they purposely walk away. I cannot be that person. If I start something, I have to finish it.
Yeah, it's got to be really bad for it to be like a movie or a show or a book
I paid
to be bad.
I paid money to go to a movie. I remember there was one movie in particular we've talked about it before, Judge Dredd, the new one that got made. And
with Yeah, the guy from Lord of the Rings and
Yeah.
oh yeah, that one's
And the opening scenes when like the bodies drop from like the 200th floor and just like land and just go splat or whatever, and there was already like a bunch of gore before this and a bunch of other graphic scenes, and I was like, I'm gonna leave this theater. Like, I had never thought that before in a movie theater ever, and I was like, I'm going to leave. Like, I don't want to watch this. Like, this isn't something for me. Like, I don't want to watch this. We were going with friends, but I still stuck it through because I was like, I just believe in like completing something if you start it. I don't think that there's ever been anything where it's like I've been able to walk away and be like, nope. Maybe some foods because they suck.
There was a movie I saw. Oh, I don't remember when it came out. It's Mulholland. There's two Mulholland movies. I think this was called Mulholland Falls. It's a David Lynch movie. David Lynch movies are always very weird. This one's got Naomi Watts and somebody else in it, and it's a I don't remember what most of the movie was about, other than there was a strange like demonic being somehow involved in the movie killing people.
Oh, interesting.
That pops up every once in a while, and I remember movie was awful. And I remember an old couple was watching. This was at this time. Pretty much every movie I was seeing was with my buddy John from high school, and we're sitting there, and there's clearly like 10 minutes left in this movie. I mean, it's wrapping up, and this old couple stands up in front of us, and they start walking out, and something bizarre had happened like the previous scene that was just like over the top or something. And now they're up, and I'm like, really? You're leaving now? There's like, you could have left I'm like the whole theater can hear me. Like I'm just like, really? You're leaving? There's only like 10 minutes left. You could have like 10 minutes ago, the scene 10 minutes ago, that wasn't enough for you? Now you're leaving? And they're just like, shut up, we're out of here. And I'm just like, what?
You're like, how was that the last
straw?
that
was exactly. It was like, that was the last straw? What's wrong with you?
Oh my god. Or what's considered the worst movie of all time? The You're Tearing Me Apart, Lisa. Oh hi Mark. What is that? It's somebody knows what The Room.
Oh.
And then yes. Anyways.
I don't have any unfinished books. I have a book that's sitting right in front of Colton that I have to start.
Well, okay. So like when it comes to unfinished, so years ago, I finally got back into reading. This isn't something where it's like Colton's been a reader since he was like 5. No, it was actually due to the insomnia. I really started getting back into reading. Where it was just kind of something, it was kind of a cooling activity that was good, calming. And I do believe it's good for me. And I also believe that as an English teacher, we should be reading books.
Yeah.
There's lots of English teachers that don't. But we're going through, and I remember I was going through book recommendation lists. I was following some people that have podcasts and that have, and I used to read a lot of nonfiction, and that was kind of my thing for the longest period of time. And then somebody was like, "Hey, you should start reading some fantasy," and I was like, "Yeah, all right, I'll like try it." You know, I was like, "Yeah, I'm a big Lord of the Rings fan," and like that's been my fantasy my entire life. Or I read a lot of classical literature. So when I was in high school, I devoured classical literature. I was like, oh yeah, this is where it's at. This is literature, you know, like, and I'd always scoff at whatever the heck my little sister was reading, her YA. Oh my gosh, I still scoff at YA. I don't really care for young adult. Coming of age stories don't appeal to me as much anymore. this guy was talking about how the fact that when he reads a series, he reads probably like 3 or 4 books at a time. And I was like, what? Who the hell does that? I was like, it's one book. And now I'm at this point where that's about how I read things, is I read about 3 or 4 books at a time, where it's I'm reading something nonfiction, and I'm reading probably 3 other fictional books at one time. And it drives my wife insane.
Yeah,
She doesn't.
I don't think I can.
She doesn't understand it. She doesn't understand that I can't, or like I have no desire to like complete series. Like she's like, once you start one, that's how you need. And that's how I actually started. I was like, okay, I'm gonna read this series, and I'll read this book, and the book after, and the book after, and the book after, and the book after. But the hard part was the book series that I chose was The Wheel of Time, which we talked about before, which is again a 15-book series, and each of the books are about 800 to 1,100 pages on each one. So it's a year-long endeavor, and I had gotten to this one book, and I was like, I'm super fed up with some of these characters, and I was like, and so I started reading other ones to just kind of to give me a break in between, and then I was like, oh man, and so I try reading these other ones, and so I'm actually in the middle of, and this drives my wife insane, I am in the middle of 13 different series right now. So and
I can see books I would need to finish, but not series. I could see you like, all right, I'm done with that. I need to, for a while, I need to read something else and then come back to the series.
Yeah, so the series is fine, and so I like when I say I have 4 books that are incomplete as of right now, and through the end of the year I won't have them completed. But I'm in the middle of 4 books, 2 of which are baby books. I'm reading a Montessori book, and I'm reading a book about how to basically make sure your kid isn't just eating dino nuggies for the rest of their life. And then I'm in the middle of 2 fantasy books, which I'm enjoying. So I was like, no big deal. So it seemed like something that was far-fetched before, but now I'm like, I have become what was impossible at one point. I didn't even know that could happen.
Well,
So,
at this point, I'm finding it hard to finish this beer we have, but
hey, no, not hard. We're taking our time.
we are taking our time. I'm milking this as much as I can.
Absolutely, as we should. I'm actually impressed that I've been able to milk this. I mean, we've only been recording for like, what, an hour and 20 minutes?
It's still cold, too. I think it's probably the metal cup.
It's the metal cup. It's
yeah.
the metal cup tonight.
Because this warm, I'm not sure would be tolerable.
Oh.
It'd be like eating a tepid steak.
Number 25, what was the best compliment you received this year?
Best compliment. Oh, well, that's that I could hold my liquor on the San Diego Beer Marathon for sure. The old guy.
Oh, no, it wasn't even the fact that you could hold your liquor. It was the fact that you could hold your liquor and sleep on the floor for at least one of the nights.
Yeah.
And get Chinese water torture.
And Chinese water torture and feel fine. Still got it.
Oh, I was so miserable Saturday morning. Golly, and I didn't even sleep on the floor. Oh, I wanted to die.
Oh, and then Nolan did sleep on the floor Saturday.
Or Sunday night, Saturday night into Sunday morning, and he was death on Sunday.
Yeah.
He was death incarnate. He was the dead corpse you were talking about earlier.
Pope Formosus.
The biggest compliment that I received this year, and I think that it may not have been necessarily been big. I think sometimes you like the little pats on the back, but yeah, I think visually we have cups, and sometimes they're overflowing and sometimes they're empty of just, and for me personally, my love language is words of affirmation. I like when people tell me I'm doing well or whatever, but I also tell this to people whenever they think, because people think that words of affirmation, I was like, if you don't mean anything to me, no offense, but like if you're like when kids tell me like you're my favorite teacher, like that doesn't mean anything. I'm gonna be 100% honest with you. I'm just like, oh yeah, I'm like your older brother, so when you tell me that I'm your favorite teacher, it doesn't, like, you just think that I'm cool, like, and I'm not your math teacher who's just like rah, 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 rah,
Right.
and I'm like, okay, so in my honest opinion, I don't think it takes much to become a kid's favorite teacher. So when they say that, it's always just kind of like, okay. But that being said, so you have cups that get filled,
based off of the compliments that you receive. And as far as my worth in my job, I just felt like my cup was completely empty after getting let go, after just kind of being in this drought and this anxiety period. And then I was able to take over this job at Monachi, and I was able to grow and to develop there. But in November, my athletic director told me that he was joking around with our principal, and our principal had said that hey, I need to talk to you about something. And my athletic director went in there, and he's like, hey, we need to talk about Pierce. We got to do something about him. And my athletic director was like, what? Like, I don't know what you're talking about. And he's like, no, seriously, we have to do something about him. And he's like, he says the principal's name. He's like, I don't know what you're talking about. I think he's been great for me. I don't know what it is. And he's like, I'm just kidding. I think he's a great hire. I think that this has been great. And so I was like, hey, the fact that I was a joke means that I'm in the clear. Like, right. I was like, the fact that both of these two guys could joke about it, and because both of them are my bosses. Right. So I was like, for both of them to feel like I was a good hire and a good choice, that took my cup and like completely filled it. Like I felt a lot more confidence in just being able to feel good about my position. I talk with my athletic director. I talk with my principal all the time, and I feel good and I feel confident about my job based off of the way that they talk about me and what they try to do for me. And so that compliment, that moment, made me feel really good, and that's probably the best I had felt in my job this entire year. So I just remember that moment, and that was crucial.
Yeah, absolutely.
Crucial. 26. If you were to talk about this year like a story, how would you write it?
Well, this year would be the middle of the book, or the middle book of 3 or 4 books, because it's not finished yet. So it's building up to the finale, or the next big, yeah.
You're the Two Towers.
Yeah, it's the Two Towers, exactly.
No, well, actually, the Two Towers is where Tolkien gets his hate from. So, I was about to say, Tim probably feels like his last year was kind of boring as far as there was not a lot of action or whatever. And the Two Towers, some people swear by the Two Towers. They're like, it's my favorite movie, it's my favorite book. But really, if we're actually being honest, if you read the books, it's really like Helm's Deep is like a chapter. And it's not a long chapter.
It's true. Well, in that sense, it would be the Two Towers, because there's been a lot of not happening, but it's all building up.
But when people think of the Two Towers, if they've only seen the movies, they're like, Helm's Deep, that's a great battle. Like, oh my gosh, your year must have been immaculate. We're like, no, we're talking about the book Two Towers, where Tolkien spends 2 pages talking about the trees, which everybody can't stand that he does that.
Yep, except Rush. Rush loves it.
I love it, but I don't hold it against him. Yeah, so you're saying you're kind of the in-between. Yeah, it's always hard when it comes to school years and that kind of stuff. I always feel like I'm in an in-between ground where really my year isn't over. And so, I still feel like we're in the starting of something new. I'm still in the honeymoon stages with my school. There's probably lots of problems and things that I don't see and all that kind of stuff, but I get to sit there and blissfully walk around and feel like everybody walks on water.
I'm skeptical. I've learned, but I'm still very hopeful for this. So if my story was one to be written, it's definitely got several books still to be written about it. But as far as this year goes, it's a new beginning. And I hope that it's one for the better.
Yeah, that's just a difficult thing in general in life, and I think some people have a skill at avoiding this, where we want to romanticize new things. It's, oh, this is new, like this is a new church and everybody's great and the blah 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 blah. This is a new school and everything's great and blah blah blah, and it's just no. There's always something ugly, and the quicker you can tell yourself it's no different than anything else. It might be better than a lot of things. That doesn't mean it's as bad as other things, but it certainly has its warts and its problems and its dysfunctions. Then you're not so much blindsided when they come along. They're like, oh no, I didn't know that this was going on in the church, or this was going on in this school or this workplace. Yeah, it does. Every place has got its little gossips and cliques and all that kind of stuff. So,
Yeah. High school never ends, folks.
mm-mm.
There's a Bowling for Soup song about that. Number 27. How do you describe this year in 3 to 5 keywords? I actually like this exercise. I try to get kids to, we'll usually go broad because, like let's get it broad, but then I want you to focus in. And I think that is actually a very difficult exercise to try to summarize things in very few words. And so 3 to 5 words, how would you describe this this year?
Well, I can do it in 2: unfinished business.
That's it? That's all you got?
Yeah,
Unfinished business.
that's all I need. Economy of words. For the podcast, it's work in progress. I think it's still a work in progress. So
Nice.
how about you?
I say hope for better. And not in like the bad sense of like I hope for better years than this one. It's more of that this year gave me hope for better things to come is more what I would say. So, I don't know. I think that there's a question in here that's coming up. Yeah, it's actually the next question. What energized you and what drained you this year?
Well, the podcast is both energizing and draining. The editing can be draining. Oh, I gotta edit this thing. I gotta get it edited so we can get it up. But the show itself is very energizing. My work day to day is a bit draining, but I always enjoy, and you get to go on 2 or 3 of those trips where you have been able to go. You won't be anymore. You go on 1 or 2 a year. When I get to go out and do my work at racetracks and football games and stuff like that, it's always exciting and energizing. So.
Yeah, I'll start with the drain, so that way I can end on a high note. Drain me this year is, yeah, I think just last year I was in a really, really bad place at this time. I was very, very insecure in my job. My nails were completely bit off of my fingers, not literally, but because I just was under so much stress at work. I didn't feel like I was competent. I didn't feel like I was doing a good job, and I was made to feel that way each and every day that I was trying to earn my way back, and it wasn't healthy for me. Don't get me wrong. Here's the thing: is we could sit there and people can say, "Well, were you not doing your job?" And that kind of stuff. which is a fair question to ask in those situations. And those were the questions that I was asking. I'm not going to sit here and say, like, you know, I'm perfect and that I'm without fault or whatever. I'm just saying that this was the circumstance that I was under. And as somebody who cared, it was something that I took very seriously and tried to correct, and because somebody had said that I wasn't good at my job, and so therefore I needed to make the corrections in order to prove that I was good at my job. And so I busted my butt and I worked really hard, and nothing ever came of it, and that really doesn't feel good. And so that was really draining this year, because you know, we don't ever want to give our heart and soul into something and then somebody say that's not good enough for us, because that's really tough. But it happens. That's the way that the world works, and so therefore we got to move on from it. And so that's why I say that there's hope for better. There was better out there for me. What gave me energy this year was every opportunity that I got to spend with friends is what gave me energy. Every Friday at Kauai, every Wednesday night at Trivia.
Yeah, absolutely.
Every Tuesday night talking on the podcast. Every trip that we took, NASCAR, beer trip, friend trips, whatever. Those are the things that give energy. And when we talked about earlier about what did you do for your mental health, I think that all of those things are crucial for our mental health, where we take time to savor moments with good people around us. Are good things for us, and so those always brought me energy, always helped me unwind, and I'm grateful for them, that's for sure. Anything else on energized or drained you?
No.
Number 29, how kind were you to yourself this year?
To myself?
Uh-huh.
Oh, jeez. I don't know.
Tim's like, I don't give into that hippy-dippy bullshit.
Yeah, I have no idea.
Oh,
I don't know how to answer that.
Oh, I know how to answer it. The other night, I took myself out on a date. It was a 10-minute date, but it was what I needed. I've been watching Reese all day, and as I've disclosed on the show before, I'm not very good with infants. I'm getting better. I did notice today. I will say that I am getting better to where before it was like, okay, I'm going to feed you, and then I got to figure something to do with you. Like, that was kind of what it was. Hopefully guys on this podcast understand what the hell I'm talking about.
I think they do.
Where it's like, I fed you, what the hell do you want me to do with you after this?
Yeah.
Like, you know, like, you're not doing much. Like, I don't know what the hell I'm going to do. And I've noticed that over the past couple of days, like, it does seem like the hours are not as long. The first day that my wife left me with Reese, I was like, every hour I was like, oh my gosh, I got 7 more hours of this shit. I got 6 more hours of this shit. Like, you know, like, I was like, what the hell? The hours were not flying by at all. But now, like, even though it's only been a few days that I've done it, I'm like, you know, I'm playing with her and hanging out with her and that kind of stuff, and it doesn't seem as much of a chore. And so the hours kind of fly by a little bit more, and so that's kind of been nice. She still got whiny and fussy, and I'm still calling her mom when she's getting whiny and fussy to just be like, hey, how's it going? She's like, oh, it's good. I'm not going to be home for another couple hours. Cool. Just for whatever reason, I just thought it might be in my brain that you might have gotten off early and you're going to be here in like 10, 15 minutes. And I'd be like, thank God. But, yeah, I think that So I had spent a day with Reese, and I was like, and we had just finished dinner, and I was like, you know what? I'm gonna go get myself a milkshake. And we got a new ice cream shop in Visalia, and so I drove down to Handel's Ice Cream.
Oh my gosh.
And I am a sucker, and everybody's gonna laugh at this because there's a very particular breed of human that likes this type of thing, and I get that, and I'm one of those humans, and so therefore I got a banana cream pie milkshake, and I had just had one, like probably 2 days before, and I was like, that was delicious, and that was what I needed, and then 2 days later I was like, I need a milkshake. And so I drove down and I had a banana cream pie milkshake, and it was delicious. I love the banana. I love banana flavored things, especially the cream kind of flavor. So yeah, I was kind to myself that day. I deserved it. You know? Every time I drink a beer, I always know, Colton, you deserve this. That's how I'm kind to myself. But in all seriousness, as far as like, yeah, I think anywhere psychologically now, if you look, there are things that you need to do to take time for yourself. And I think that actually I may be a little too good at taking time for myself. And so don't stretch yourself too thin. Although, don't get me wrong, coaching takes a lot out of you, and so the time that you don't spend coaching, you should definitely be taking time for yourself. So, oh man,
Yeah.
So I don't feel guilty about it one bit, but at the same time, know that not everybody is needing to take time for themselves every day. So, yeah, so that's what I do. Anything? Did you think of anything? For
No,
yourself?
That's not something that
Well, take yourself out on a date. Go get yourself a milkshake.
I'll drive up to Handel's tomorrow.
Do you like banana cream pie flavored stuff?
No.
Oh, okay.
But I do.
I
Their
totally
ice cream though is spectacular.
It's really tasty. Well, I've only had milkshakes. I also had the Oreo dough milkshake the other night because my grandparents wanted ice cream. We're like, oh yeah, let's go take you down to this other spot. So I had an Oreo dough, which is cookie dough and Oreo ice cream, are mixed together in a blender.
I have not had their milkshakes. I've only had their ice cream, and their ice cream is almost like ice custard. I think that's what they call it in the Midwest.
Yeah, I get you.
It's very well. Some of their ice cream, it's not every. It depends on the flavor you get, and I'm not sure why, but some of it's like really fluffy, almost consistency wise. But it's all very tasty. You can get. First couple times we went there, my wife and I just got little pints. They'll hand pack pints of whatever they have, and then I took my youngest. Well, I had my two older granddaughters, the middle granddaughter's birthday. So I took her and her older sister and my mom, and we went to Handel's. We had pizza next door and then Handel's. And I had never gotten ice cream cones from there. So I was like, all right, I'm going to order small ice cream cones.
Yeah.
So I order...
And they come out with 3 scoops on top.
I order the... can I get 3? Can I get 3 of your small ice cream cones? Sure, what do you want? And the 2 girls wanted, I don't remember what my mom got, but they wanted strawberry shortcake, or no, strawberry cheesecake ice cream. And yeah, it's like 4 massive scoops in a waffle cone. And like, here you go, happy 4th birthday. And she's like, oh my gosh. So yeah, just sitting there. And she's doing the little girl thing of like licking the ice cream. And I'm like, Emmy. And it's not, this was 6 weeks ago, so it's not like it's hot, super hot outside.
Right.
But it's midday, and I just, Amy, that ice cream's going to melt all over yourself if you don't start, like, eating it. You can't just lick it. There's too much there. So, there was so much ice cream, both of them finally looked at me and said, Papa, I'm done. And I was like, okay. Well, I think we can take it home. So they couldn't even get through all of it. But very tasty.
Well, your last question on your reflection for your new year, or last year or this year, is what advice would you give your last year's self or this year's self? Before you started this year, what advice would you give yourself?
So what would you give your 2024 self?
What would you give your 2023 self?
Oh, jeez. Yeah, be patient. It's gonna take a lot longer than you think it's gonna take.
I think for me it would just be, again, there's something better. And I think that's the best thing to take from it.
Is that hard? Is that hard for you? Because, well, not hard for you. Does that advice seem a bit American to you? Americans are eternally optimistic. We're told to be optimistic. You know, things are always going to be looking up, and that's just not how the world works in a lot of instances, particularly if you're not in North America or Western Europe.
Yeah, I mean, well, okay, so I mean, where I could come from on this is, and mainly this is where I get and where you talked about it before, where I get the romanticized version, where again, I now get to see what things look like on the other side. I know that things worked out this year to whereas in late February, I felt like things were extremely hopeless. And in January, I was 95% sure that I was getting fired.
Right. Oh, yeah, I remember. Yeah.
I was like, we joke about it in passing, but I was like, I know it's coming. Like, I know. Like, there was no way, based off the way that these people made me feel, I was like, there's no way. And then and so, again, when I think of how I started this year in this really down, crappy place, now I still was determined. That was also part of it, where it wasn't like I gave up. Like, it wasn't like at the beginning of this year, I was like, I can still fight for this. I can still win this back. You know, I can still come back from this. But I couldn't come back from it as far as in that particular occupation or in that particular site. And so for me, I'm sitting there and I can sit there and say, now the message that I would give my previous self, that's the message I would give. To where it's like, you can fight through this and be able to, you're going to be okay at the end.
Yeah.
But I'm not saying that exists for everybody else.
That's the thing I struggle with.
Well, and that's what I'm saying. So I'm saying that I get that at this point because things did work out for me. But that's not the case for everybody else. I can't sit there and say that message then transcends to every other person. Where
So
it's like,
how do you handle that?
just because it worked out for me, you have to get your life and your happiness from something else. It can't be. And if you're sitting there and you're saying, so what you're saying is, Colton, you get your happiness in your life from your job or your occupation. It's like, well, welcome to the American consumeristic model is where.
Well, I don't think that's the lesson. I think.
Well, I'm saying if somebody were to ask me that, where it's like, yeah, that's it. There is every person in the United States, whether they like it or not, receives an immense amount of value from their occupation.
Oh, sure. Look, I won't mention who. One of our mutual friends was at a recent party, and no, he was at a Bible study. He was at a Bible study, and the new pastor of the church. I don't. He's not going to, but I'm almost done myself.
Cocktail finished.
This new pastor showed up at the Bible study and asked him, and first question out of his mouth was, "What do you do for a living?" And our mutual friend was like, he told me, he said, "Am I wrong?" I felt offended by that. The pastor's like, what do you do for a living is the first question that comes out of his mouth. Like that's the thing that matters. So we had a 10-minute conversation about, I don't know that really that shouldn't be what anybody's first question should be.
It's not an uncommon question for the first thing that you ask in the United States, though. We find so much identity in what we do for a living. Do we not?
No, we absolutely do. Absolutely do. That's the first question. Most, 99% of us, that's the question. So what do you do? Because I think everybody's got a pretty good idea of generally if you do.
I could even figure out your personality type based off of what
well,
you do for a living.
I think if we're being honest, we're trying to figure out whether or not how much money you make is what we're trying to figure that out without outright saying, so how much money do you pull in a year? What's your what's your household income?
Well, and also, are you an interesting person or a boring as shit person?
Well, I think that's where we get ourselves into trouble by asking that question. Is okay. Well, you just assume that someone's a school teacher, then.
Oh, no, see, what I think is if you tell me that you're a CPA, I'm like, oh, you make good money, but golly, you must be boring as hell.
You're boring as hell. Yeah, exactly. No, I think what I was going for is... I mean, let's be honest. You probably should feel lucky as hell because things did break. You should feel, if we're being honest, super appreciative of the situation Absolutely. You have and thankful every day. This could have quickly gone south for me.
100%.
I could be bitter working at a CVS 4 days a week.
100%.
And that's kind of where, I'm sorry, folks. I can't be completely honest about what's going on in my life, but I've got this situation going on in my life, and there's a possibility that it doesn't break in the direction I think it's going to go, and I'm concerned that I'm going to spend. I'm not overstating it. I've told this to my wife. I could spend the rest of my days being very, very bitter and cynical about the entire world if this thing in my life doesn't go the direction I think it does professionally. So it's just so difficult because if you guys are listening to this, I mean, Colton came to our house when things went south for him at the previous place. He came over one night and just can I come over, and just unloaded. And Danica and I were just this isn't you. This isn't I've never spent a moment in Colton's classroom. I truthfully don't know. He could be a shitty teacher. I have no idea, but that didn't strike me as the kind of person you are. And part of that's just because of the time you'd spent with me doing my work. You always seem responsible. I can judge someone who's just volunteering doing my work, whether or not they take it seriously enough. You seem pretty professional. So we could tell how dark it was for you, and for things to go as well as they did, it could have easily just not.
100%. Well, I mean, that was also part of the...
You could be my job sucks right now, but, at least I got a new baby. All right, cool.
Yeah, that was an additional stressor, let me tell you.
Well, I mean, that could be the one thing you're, looking up to, but...
That's true. That's true. I think that when it comes to this year, and
I am now, and this is also the hard part but here's also the thing is I don't necessarily find my worth in my occupation, but I think that there is a burden that was on me at this point. I'm the breadwinner in my family or in my household. I don't necessarily lean into the fact that I need to provide for my family. To where if my wife made 4 times the amount of money that I did, it wouldn't bother me. The key thing is, for me, is are we both doing something that we're both happy in? And that's what's important for me. And here's the thing. Or now, wait. Now, if my wife, and now that she's had her child, okay, her happiness is realigned, where she has found that maybe being with our baby is the thing that brings her happiness.
Yeah, it's funny how that works.
Right? But if that's the thing that brings you life, and yet we're still where we're at, our house, the bills that we have, it doesn't necessarily work to where I'm able to be the full income. So where it's like my wife is like, okay, maybe I just pick up a part-time job and I'm not out as many hours and I'm able to stay with her and raise her or whatever. Then I want to be able to support that as well. Like, it's not about, I'm very happy in my job. But that's not the thing that necessarily gives me life. But it is the thing that pays the bills, which is, at the end of the day, I am still a part of the rat race that exists, where it's I'm still trying to make ends meet, and I'm the one that makes the majority of the money in our household that's able to pay for the majority of our bills, to where my wife she can sit there and say, like, I can have the part-time job. But if she were to keep her job and I was to get a part-time job, that just wouldn't fly. Like, we wouldn't be able to make ends meet. So that's, it's just the world that we live in. So there was a lot of pressure on me in that moment, and I was able to come out from it. And so that's where I find happiness and hope, is from that, where that burden wasn't when that burden was coming down on me, I was able to fight and get it. Now, also something to be said about my occupation is I love what I do, but also I knew the entire time I was going to get a job. I knew that 100%, but that's because of my job in particular. For those of you that are unfamiliar, there's an educator shortage. So there's a teacher shortage across the country. Boomers decided to all become teachers. They were really shitty at their jobs. And for some reason, they all wanted to become teachers. I don't know what the hell was going on, but the boomers all became teachers. Gen Xers said, fuck that noise. Yeah. And they didn't become teachers. And a lot of millennials said, fuck that noise as well. We don't want to be like grandma and grandpa. And they didn't become teachers. And so there's this huge teacher shortage right now, where the boomers are all retiring. And so they're trying to find people. And so if you teach a core subject, as long as you're not trying to be a history teacher, and even then history teachers are able to find their jobs. You just may not be, or a PE teacher, you may not be working in a district that you like, but you'll be able to find a job. I knew I was going to be able to find a job. That was never a problem. It was just more of, is this necessarily a job that I should be doing? If they're saying that I'm bad at it, is this something that I should do? There was looking at different options. That kind of stuff. And a lot of people don't have that luxury. Like my wife, when she kept getting let go from jobs, those jobs don't necessarily always exist all the time. And so that's really difficult. And I completely understand and I sympathize with those people. I didn't go through that at all. And so that's not necessarily fair for me to sit there and talk about the situation like that, in my opinion. But it was a tough time in my life, but was able to come out okay from it. So,
well, that's kind of what I was getting at. Well, it's an American ideal to be able to do the kind of work you want to do and work in an ideal place. I mean, even this exercise we're doing is frankly a very like upper class, upper middle class professional exercise to end the year. Most people don't have
Yeah,
the
we're
time.
looking down on all of you, actually.
No, most people don't have the time or they got too many other things going on to think about. And I'm not poo-pooing the exercise that we've done for the 2 episodes, but you know what I'm saying. It is.
It's humbling.
It's a very humbling, strange thing to be able to live in the situations we do, and so it makes it all the more important to take the time we have outside of work and family to make sure we're doing what we need to do for Jesus's kingdom. So, I guess is what I'm trying to get at.
Well, before we end our episode,
Mm-hmm.
we're actually saying screw you to everybody else on this podcast. You don't get to listen to us just kind of hang out. But we'll let you know what beer we're drinking while we're hanging out. We're drinking Racer 5 by Bear Republic. So
Woohoo! It's back.
it's back, baby. Which we haven't had the hazy, which is like the Racer 7 or something.
Yeah, and I haven't seen it anywhere either. Well, I used to see it, but I have not seen it since Bear Republic got bought by.
It starts with an F, right? Foster's?
No, they got bought by. Shoot.
It's a San Francisco brewing company, right?
Yes.
Dukes.
No,
Was it not Dukes?
you're close.
Drake's.
There you go. Drake's Brewing Company. And it tastes different after that. Thank you very much.
I actually think it tastes really good, but
Yeah. Very bitter. It's very good. Yeah, so then we got 1 episode left, and that's what we look forward.
yes, we got 20
20
questions.
20 questions. We will do 20 questions. We'll get 1 more episode. We won't turn this into 4 episodes. We'll do 20 questions on the next episode.
Looking forward to the next year, to 2024.
Next time we record, hopefully Colton and I will have gone and saw Michigan and Alabama play in the Rose Bowl, weather permitting. So
If the weather is not permitting, we're saying screw it.
yeah, if the weather's not permitting, we'll just say screw it and we'll just stay home and watch the game. I'm not getting caught on the other side of the grapevine with either snow getting in the way or a 6-hour drive back. But hopefully you all have a wonderful actual New Year, even though this is for us New Year's episode number 2. But have a wonderful New Year's Eve and a New Year's Day.
Be safe, please.
Be safe and
Eat lots of black-eyed peas.
What? Wait, what? Is that a thing?
What? You don't eat black-eyed peas on New Year's Day?
No, why would I?
It's for good luck.
Does it come with pork chops?
What are you talking about?
I don't know what are you talking about?
The black-eyed peas. What? You don't know about the thing of where you eat black-eyed peas on New Year's Day and it gives you good luck?
Hell no.
What? It's like eating corned beef and cabbage on freaking St. Patrick's Day. Well, it doesn't.
Clearly, it's not.
Watch.
Black-eyed peas.
Why we eat black-eyed peas and collard greens on New Year's Day?
No, I'm definitely not doing collard greens.
One of the largest held traditions is that of eating black-eyed peas and collard greens in some form on New Year's Day. In fact, this tradition is so pervasive throughout the Southeast that black-eyed peas appear in recipes as varied as cowboy caviar in Texas to Hoppin' John in Alabama to peas with ham up in North Carolina. According to legendary Southern food researcher John Egerton, black-eyed peas are associated with a mystical and mythical power to bring good luck and have been a Southern staple for more than 3 centuries. Hey, man, you're the North Carolina guy. I don't know.
Okay, you know what I have to say to all of that? North Carolina basketball, Alabama football, and fucking Texas football can all go to hell.